going on, guys? Urban Bass Slayers here. Gonna be pouring some plastics today. I got some old Senkos and a bunch of old baits I find on the shore when I'm out fishing. People's stuff they throw on the ground instead of taking it. I take all my old Senkos and old Mighty Bugs. I mean, I got tons of these things in there. I re-pour these things constantly. I just take them apart, rip them apart, throw them back in there. Got my microwave here where I can heat up my plastics. Got my hot plate so I can keep it at a certain temperature. Got my injector so I can inject these molds. See, so here we go. Here's a couple of the plaster molds that I've made over the last couple of years. Some of these are falling apart. I just rebuilt my whole entire bait room here, so I'm trying to revamp and fix some of these up. Made the snake one. Make these snakes. I took a frog head and some Senkos, hooked the Senkos together to make the original. And these guys are two color. So what I do is I hand pour the bottom, and I put the mold together, and then I inject the second color to get two color. So this is a snake that I made. This is a weird little creature thing that I made. I don't really know what to call it. I'm calling it the stickler. Put some eyes on this one. I actually caught a pretty good fish on this and sent the picture into Bass Angler magazine, and they stuck it on their page because they were so intrigued on what the heck was this handmade bait that I had made. All I did was I took some legs off of a frog and I glued them on the side, and yeah, there you go. This thing is weird when it flops down in the water. I mean, it's a pretty funky looking little bait, man. So yeah, made that guy. Gonna make some more of these, all these today, just to make them. This guy, not really calling it the flying squirrel. I don't know what to call it. The legs ripped off of the original, so I just took a Zoom curly tail worm, an old frog head. I dipped the frog head in some plastics when it was still hot. So there's the mold for that guy. I always put my little air chambers. I just put air chambers on these ones. They didn't have them. Back in the day when I was making these, I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know you had to have air chambers when you're injecting to let the air come out the sides. There's another guy I made. Call these guys the Angel of Death. There's three of them. Three different Angel of Deaths. This is the first one I made. I actually hand carved those wings out of the back of a different mold I have, which is on this guy right here. I hand carved those wings, both sides. It was really hard to do. So the wings on this guy and the wings on that guy, I hand carved most of it. So this is this guy. I got a bunch of different colors, doing like the two color. Of course, I didn't know how to pour the two colors together properly back then, so this guy's like coming apart. Two colors. I dipped that tail to get it bigger to make it flap harder. And this is the original. The original's actually got a skull on the head, but once I had to cut out the front for the injection, it actually took apart the jaw and the bottom of the teeth, but you still got the skull face. So see, there's the original. It's a little beat up looking, see what I mean? Now if I had an actual like aluminum CNC thing, that one actually almost looks like a face mask on the front of the skull, but it's alright because it gives a good spot for the hook to go right into it. These things actually, I designed these guys for fishing at night because they got a really big profile. Here's another one. Got a Mighty Bug body on this guy. Same thing. So what I did is I went and I found these little skulls. I made a little tiny mold of the skull, which this thing's so old it fell apart. Little tiny skull mold that I made. This is one of the first molds that I made actually. And I just poured the plastic down in there. Made those skulls. I stuck it on there with the toothpick and some other stuff. And yeah, I made my two-part plaster molds. There's tons of videos out there on YouTube for the how to make two-part plaster molds. I'll probably be making some more molds myself. I'm making another video on that, another one of those heads. So I poured a bunch of those heads and stuck them on these different baits. because these are trying to make my own little design thing here, the Angel of Death. These guys are, you know, I just took some legs off of something else and I chopped up some baits and made my own molds, man. See, this guy doesn't have the air escapes yet, and this guy actually broke while it was down underneath all my old shelves and stuff. So I gotta fix this guy. I'll probably 2-ton epoxy it back together or do something like that. And my snake mold here broke on me earlier when I was moving it, so I got kind of bummed on that one. That's alright, because I just try to keep these things. These are my old molds. I'm going to make more. I got a bunch of other molds down here. I mean, I got my official Gary Yamamoto 5-inch Senko mold. I mean, this thing's, I got 2 of these. And I pour Senkos, just a few Senkos, just a couple Senkos. I got a bunch of, oh yeah, whole bunch of Senkos. Wow, yeah, Cinco de Mayo. Different colors. Clear water ones. Some Mighty Bugs I poured. Oh hey, I was looking for those. Bunch of different colors I got here, man. Yep, so I'm gonna start making labels for these. I'm gonna start doing some stuff, man. I'm gonna get on it. I'm gonna pour some baits right now. I'm gonna heat this up, take a little break. I'm gonna make a time lapse, and yeah, we're bastlers. Gonna make some odd looking and individual custom made things here. Thanks for watching. Alright guys, so got my big set up here with my 3 plaster molds for the different baits I'm going to be making today. Angel of Death. Got my plastics here. You can see there's all kinds of different colors in there. Different flake. So I'm going to mix this together. It's just going to be a big mess of colors. Got stuff flying all over the place here. Already making a mess. So, what we're going to do here. I'm going to go 2 minutes at first. And you want to mix it up a little bit. Stuff that's down in there. Starting to get a little liquidy. You start off at 2 minutes. And then what I'll do is I'll drop it down to about 1 minute at a time. And I get down to 30 seconds. The other thing I'm going to do here, I'm going to put this on medium. And I'm going to put my injector on there to get it warm and get it to temperature. The thing I'm going to do is find my gloves. Once this stuff gets hot, get these coated gloves at Home Depot or in your home improvement stores. Pretty cheap. Gotta get a new pair of these. They haven't ripped through yet, but this, see, the plastic gets a little too hot sometimes. Gonna have to get some new gloves soon here. I use these things for about a year, maybe 2 years now. I got all my plastics set up over here. Got all my baits and lures out here now. I got to start dialing all this stuff in a little better. But as I work, I'm going to dial all my stuff in a little more. So let's see what we got going on here. See, it's turning to liquid now. Once it hits 350 degrees, it'll start to liquefy. So parts of this are too temp because it's liquefying, but the rest, not so much. So it needs to be 350 all around. So now I'm going to drop down to 30 seconds because it's already starting to liquefy. You do not want to burn your plastics. I used to burn my plastics all the time, especially if I put too much salt in it. That stuff will burn real quick if you leave it in there too long. You can see some smoke coming off this guy. Now, if I can feel the warmth of this thing through my gloves, I know it's nice and warm. The reason why you want this warm, when you stick that plastic in here, you don't want this cold. You don't want your injector cold. If your injector's cold, the plastic will stick to the inside of it. Now once I start pouring with these guys, the first pours that I do with them, since they're plaster molds, they're probably going to stick a little bit on the inside because they're not warmed up yet. You can heat these up and get them to temperature, but I'd suggest not doing it because they will break, because they are plaster. It's a $5 bag of plaster to make those. It's you know, a little bit cheaper than the $60 aluminum molds. So yeah, they break a lot, and you will have to remake your plaster molds from time to time, which it's not that bad. Buy a $5 bag of plaster, and if you got the time, that's all it's about, is just the time, really. So I want to get all that extra stuff down with the sides, make sure it all mixes in there. Try to not get it up on the sides as I'm mixing. You can see all that different color flake in there. I mean, there's blue and purple and gold and silver and you name it, man, it's in there. So you can see it's starting to liquefy, but it's still sticky like that. And you do not want to touch that stuff when it's hot like this. It will burn you. I burned my fingers a bunch of times. I got some big blisters. So, we're waiting. While we're waiting, we're going to transfer some plastics, get all that stuff ready to go. This one's ready to go. It's just sitting there. I got this extra one here, and I always keep my stir stick. I got this big heavy metal bar that I found in one of my scrap drawers, just junk drawers. It works very good to stir with. People use all kinds of stuff to stir with. You always want to use Pyrex. Don't use some janky fake. You know, you want to use a real Pyrex. Getting up to temperature. Gonna get some bubbles. If you're still getting bubbles like that and they're not popping all the way up through, it's not the temperature yet. I'm gonna go one more time at 30 seconds. That thing should be ready to go. So that just dropped there. See how that stuff will burn you. Get all the glitter in there though. Get a lot of glitter that way. A lot of flake. It's like playing with rubber cement when you were a kid in school, making those little boogers on your desk, getting in trouble. Little Johnny, pay attention. Sorry, little Johnny went fishing. I'm probably going to have to fill my injector a few times to do these because these are some of my big baits. That is looking good. Let's sit for a second, let the bubbles rise up out of there. Because you know, heat rises. If there's heat bubbles in there, it'll come up out of there. Another thing I like to do with this, to get the bubbles to come out. So I'll sit it on my heat plate here, my hot plate, and turn it all the way up, and it'll basically push all the bubbles up and out of there. Injector's nice and warm. Ooh, that's actually hot. Let's see here, cool off for a second. Those bubbles kind of rise. You're always going to get bubbles when you're recycling plastics because of the difference in the plastic mixtures and stuff, because you get different companies use different stuff, and when you're recycling you get a lot of odd stuff. Another thing I like to do is mix it a little bit, and it'll help those bubbles get out of there. You don't want to mix too much because you don't want to mix bubbles back into it. Alright. Injector's ready. It's nice and hot. Ready to go. Just out of the way. This guy ready. I have to pour that one by itself, probably. So, I always like to pour instead of suck the plastic up. A lot of people suck it up. You're going to have air in the bottom down there that you weren't able to extract out. So what you do when you pour it in this way, you can push the air out the front of the nozzle. It's very very good trick, because I used to always suck the plastic up when I first started doing this. Right about up to the line. You see all that color going through there, man. A lot of different flake color. Set this back on the hot plate. Poured it right to the top, so it should be pretty close. Spurt some out. Now that I poured it in there, there is no air inside there. You're not going to get any air inside your bait. Okay, the first one. Push down on the injector until you start seeing it come out the sides of your little air slots. Give it a second little push. It'll top itself off. Now you're going to have some settling. You can see it come out the sides. You know you got it out. Now those little air slots are making it so there's no air getting inside of your bait. You don't want air at the ends of your limbs and stuff on the baits. So there you have it. You can see it's going to start settling down a little bit in there. It's going to settle down as it kind of starts to cool, and the air is going to come up out of there. See how these ones have already done it? And just go back. Scoop some on top. Get some of that out of there. It's already started to dry on me. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to take the really hot stuff. It's still on the hot plate. Actually pour it in there. I don't know if that got down in there enough. I hope it did. You always want to top them off with the hot stuff. It's usually hot enough out of the injector, but kind of seized up on me. And this stuff, I mean, you can reuse this plastic over and over again. I got other colorants, and I got plastic flake colors, but at this moment I just recycling everything I have to reuse it. I'm going to be buying some more plastisol from Do It Molds and doing more of my own colors again, just like my Senkos. I got a ton of colors of Senkos, so I'm going to start buying more molds. I'm going to do like swim baits and frogs and all kinds of stuff. I'm going to put a big wall right here with pegs, and I'm going to hang all my baits up there. I'm going to make my own little labels and do all that stuff, so I'm going to start doing some big things here, man. It's going to take a little while, then I'm going to do this all by myself, but I got to start somewhere. So you just pop that out, get this thing drawn down and ready to go again. So that will just sit there This guy's still going to be warm. It's not really going to cool down too fast. I always turn this down right between medium and low, so it still keeps it a little bit warm, but you're going to want to throw it back in the microwave. Okay, now these guys, they have dried somewhat. Should be cool to the touch. Start off with the small one, see what we got here. I always like to snip off the top. Just bring this guy over here so we don't have to keep going back and forth. You know, those little pieces, the excess pieces, I'll just throw them back in the... You're going to have a bunch of stuff sitting all over the place. It'll get messy, but if you keep tossing them back in there, it all gets recycled. Every little bit adds up to a Senko. I mean, if a Senko's a Senko, you can catch your biggest fish you've ever caught in your life on that one Senko. Especially when it's a handmade or hand-poured Senko. Then it's really fun. Let's see what we got here. Now, see, that head always wants to peel apart. I don't know if these are quite cured up yet. I have to snip that face off a little better. My mold was not quite so tight. When you do these two-piece plaster molds, they're kind of hard to get perfect, but the faces on these are always messed up because of the plaster mold. If I had a CNC machine or something, I could make these out of aluminum. That's where it's at. But really, in all reality, these are just kind of prototype baits that I make to fish for fish with fun. There goes that mold, so I guess I'm not making any more of these today. And that's the problem with the plaster molds. You see that? I'm kind of glad that I put that on video. See this side of the mold, how thin I made that? All bad. That's all bad. See the thickness of that? That one's not going to break as easy. That one broke. I'm going to have to rebuild this one. So I'm going to have to make a new mold of this, even though this is the prototype. I mean, it still sticks together, but yeah. Basically, that one's done for the day. And you go over here. Rest in peace. Pieces. Pieces, definitely pieces. Alright. Not going to use those. Got a little bit of stuff to trim off on this guy, but not too bad. So the head's a little got a little beat up in there. I'm gonna have to make a better one next time I make the mold. Lots of colors in that thing though. I mean, those things are perfect for trailers. Lots of stuff. You can just fish them by themselves, fish them like a Senko. I've actually caught fish on those too. I've caught fish on every one of these, so that's the thing. I'm not going to reproduce something if I haven't caught fish on it, and I wouldn't try to sell or make to sell things that I have not caught fish on. That's a big deal to me. If it doesn't work, why make it? I mean, you can make something fail 100 times, and then you find that one thing that just works, man. And if it works good, and it's got that appeal, gonna work. So let's take these off our molds here. Got some stuff that seeped out the bottom. Just toss it all right back in there. Now with these ones, you got some air chambers. AOD number 1. Not too bad. And these guys, usually you can just pop them right off. Not popping off, so I'm going to cut them off. I like to cut them off as I take it out. Take each appendage out first. those wings off. Grab the head. Got body coming down this way, and pull the legs out from the hip area of the leg down to the foot. If you start with the foot and go the other way, sometimes you'll rip the foot off. It's all trial and error stuff here, and this is all just for fun. Fishing with stuff that you hand make your own lures and baits. Now sometimes I even like to leave that front thing on there, because I swear it looks like a big old gas mask on the front of the bait. Kind of cool looking, man. Got a little bit of plaster up on that wing, but that's alright. No colors in that thing. Angel of Death #1, baby. Yeah, D, look at that profile. That thing, man. Hand carved those wings. And that thing, I mean, those wings can pop out, flop. You throw that thing out there. And that could look like 1,000 different things in the water. Almost looks like a baby platypus. Baby bat. That was the original idea behind the Angel of Death baits. As I was out fishing at night with a buddy, and there was a baby bat, and it fell on top of the water, because they swoop down at you sometimes over in the local ponds where we fish at, and had some bats going, and heard one fall in the water, and it was all splashing around. I'm pretty sure a big bass came up and ate it. Yeah, I think I'm going to leave the front of that one. Looks pretty cool, man. That's the fun of making your own homemade stuff. That's #1. #3. Here's #2. This guy back together. I put little grooves in the sides, because I used to wrap these with rubber bands. They never hold together with the rubber bands. So I got these clamps, and the clamps are awesome. I thought the clamps would break them, but since I made these ones thicker, I made these in like a plastic bowl, as you can see the bottom of the bowl. Poured the bottom, put the bait in, made my little grooves. And you put the bait in there as if it was sitting like this. And then you pour your second piece on top of it. And you want to put wax in between. I put Vicks vapor rub, or whatever, not the vapor rub, but the other stuff. Petroleum jelly. Can't even think right now. Use petroleum jelly, put it on, pour the other piece. Alright, so here's the other guy. Snip these off. Not going to bother with just trying to pull them off. I'm just going to snip them. Little air chamber piece. Air chamber piece. See those little air chamber pieces? That's where the air was coming out. If the air didn't come out, you get pockets of air in the ends of your pieces right here. You'd have air right there, and you wouldn't have complete pieces, especially on these little guys. So it helps push everything out. There's no air pockets on these, but here's the bigger guy. Nice and slow. Just big old kicking feet on it. A little bit modified. There you go, man. Angel of Death. Got 1, 2, and 3 there. I'm gonna fix that one. These are gonna be my baits. These are my things here. These are my designs. Alright, let's make some more. Let's make some more stuff. Let's get this video rolling. Urban Bass Layers. I like to take the extra plastic like this, peel it up and out, get it out of the way. That way I got nothing but liquid. Still a little warm, but we want to get it thoroughly mixed, so we will drop it back in the microwave for another 30 seconds. I got a different mold set up here. It's just of a curly tail, because the way I was originally doing this I was molding each piece of baits that I was making, and I would mold the pieces, and I would completely like Frankenstein the stuff together until I had what I wanted. Like with these guys, I just Frankenstein stuff together, and that's basically where a lot of my ideas came from. Like this guy, look at those legs off of something, wings that were clipped off of the other wings. So, you know, it's just Frankenstein type ideas, man. That's all it is. So this is a curly tail that I have recarved part of it and made it a little bit bigger on a part of the tail. And then what I'm going to do with the tail is I'm going to hook it to a long Senko, and I'm going to make my own really big curly tail worms, because I can't always get to Bass Pro Shops or go places to buy my own curly tails. So I am going to make my own. So yeah, I'm going to make my own big old chunky curly tails. Here we go. Oh yeah, it looks nice. It looks really nice. When I first started doing this, I was just hand pouring everything. I did not have this injector. I got this thing for like 60 bucks online. It is a lifesaver. I was trying to do all these baits, and I couldn't do them. Let's go ahead and express that out while it's still warm. Yeah, so I was trying to hand pour all these things, and I was getting frustrated because I seen other guys online and they were doing stuff. I didn't understand why I wasn't getting the appendages with the plastic. I had two problems. I didn't have my air things cut, and I didn't have an injector. If you don't have an injector and you're just trying to hand pour, you can take baits, you can take stuff like this. Wait, where are we at? I'm going to use this guy because I was going to do this earlier. We'll go with this side of it. You can take something like this. This takes some practice, and this takes some patience. You know, start at the tail and work your way to the head. This is an open pour right here, is what this would be. We're starting the back and work to the front. A little bit too much on that foot. So hard to get that to pour out just right. Save all these little pieces. I see a lot of guys on these films and they just toss all this stuff. It all matters. I mean, I recycle every piece of plastic I find out when I'm fishing, and people throw half Senkos and partial baits and stuff. I keep it all. Keep it all. Unless it's completely beat out or it's been sitting there forever and it got all bloated out. Those bloated out Senkos, you can't really reuse them. And the other type of plastic that I realized you can't really use and you can't recycle very well is like the white swim bait type plastics. It's like you know what I'm talking about. You get those swim baits that like rip apart after one bite. Okay, it did not pour all the way. Looked like it wanted to pour all the way, but it did not pour all the way. So that was a failure. Gonna have to do here, so I'm gonna have to make a little port for my guy to fit in there. So this guy fits into my nozzle. I didn't get a good pour in here because my nozzle can't fit in there. If I would have done this now instead of when I actually built this about a year ago, I would have done it the right way. So now what I got to do is chisel out a spot for my nozzle, which, you know, will take a couple seconds here. Excess, chop, flop. As you can see, it's take a minute to make. Gotta do each one individually. I don't have super machines where I can produce thousands of these at once, and these are one-of-a-kind baits anyway, so I don't mind. They catch fish. Yeah, that's all I know. Catch fish. Got a little air bubble right there. So what I'll do with that guy is I'll wait till I heat the plastic back up and I'll fix that tail. Put a little dab of the hot plastic on there and it'll fill in that spot to make it perfect again. Put that back together. I always go to the porthole where you inject and use my thumbs to open. I find it easier that way. It takes me a while to remember all my little tricks as I'm doing this because I don't always pour baits, so yeah. Cut all these little airport deals off, and there we go. The angel of death, ready to go. Big old chunky bait. Perfect for fishing big waters, man. Big bait. Put a big old 4/0 hook on that thing. Man, seems pretty badass. Going to line these guys up. This guy is going to sit right there because probably not making any more of those today. I'll tell you that much. Well, that was a fail on that. So I'm going to fix the tail. I can go right back in there. Started doing all this stuff on a whim. I watched a few videos, some guys making Senkos, plaster molds, and I thought it was the coolest thing in the world that you could take stuff. And the old videos of the guys catching bluegill, and they were making molds like Larry Dahlberg and all those guys. Man, it's just, gotta remember to get my gloves on or I'm gonna burn myself. Yeah, all those guys basically inspired me to do this, so it's just an extension of what other people have done, and I just took it upon myself to start making my own stuff. Anyone can do this. It's really simple. When I tell people I make my own plastics and stuff, they're like, how do you do that? And it's like, well, I don't actually make the plastic, I just reuse stuff. So technically, I'm just recycling into new molds. So, yeah. A little bit of bubbles in there. I'll let it sit on the burner for a second. Sometimes if you stir it really slow, it'll stir all the bubbles to the side also and get it right out of the middle part. As long as the bubbles are out of the middle, you're not actually pouring the bubbles in. I mean, you're going to get little bubbles like that in your baits anyways. Especially using recycled plastics. When you use the brand new Plastisol, typically do not get bubbles like this. But this stuff, yeah, you're going to get bubbles. Right to the top, so you don't have too much to pop it, push out. Squeeze the air out. Alright, so some baits right there. That's how I do it. Right in there. Just ready to go again. And let this guy sit on the side. This guy's going to go back in here. Do this whole process over again. And I'm going to make a whole bunch of these and put them in some bags. And hopefully I can sell some of these someday. Thanks for watching, guys. Urban Bass Layers. Making some Angels of Death. And some plaster molds. Some old plaster molds that I made a couple years ago. So, yeah. Some prototype baits that I made. And that's about it. Thanks for watching, guys. Just remember,